Mom, this can't be right. She's on my flight. Those were the words that froze my blood that morning. My son's voice, usually so steady, so calm when he called me from the cockpit, trembled like a child's. I was standing by the kitchen window, watching the rain dribble down the glass, one hand wrapped around my coffee mug, when he said it. The way his voice cracked on the word "she" told me this wasn't a joke or a misunderstanding. Abra, something was wrong. Terribly wrong. "Who's on your flight, Daniel?" I asked, my breath catching. He hesitated. I heard the faint hum of the plane's engines behind him, the sterile quiet of a pre-flight check. Then, in a whisper so low I almost missed it, he said, "Abra, Mom, it's Lily." Abra. For a few seconds I didn't respond. My daughter-in-law's name hung between us like a ghost. Abra, Lily. The same Lily who, just an hour earlier, had texted me a photo of her morning pancakes, claiming she was home resting after a migraine. "Daniel," I said slowly, "are you sure?" Brr, he took a shaky breath. "Mom, I just saw her. She walked right past the gate, same hair, same coat. She even waved at someone before boarding. I know what I saw." Brr. And just like that, my peaceful Thursday morning became something else entirely. A slow, quiet unraveling of everything I thought I knew about my family. To understand what that moment meant, you'd have to know us before all of this. Before suspicion, before the phone call that changed everything. My name is Margaret, but everyone calls me Maggie. I live in a modest home just outside of Seattle. Pale blue siding, creaky porch swing, and a little herb garden that's been my companion since my husband, Tom, passed away 6 years ago. Daniel is my eldest, a commercial pilot, disciplined and kind, with that quiet, dependable air that makes mothers proud. He married Lily 3 years ago, after what felt like a whirlwind romance. She was all laughter and warmth when I first met her, the kind of woman who remembered birthdays and sent good morning texts with sun emojis. They moved just 2 streets away from me, into a cozy townhouse where she filled the living room with white orchids and soft jazz. I often dropped by to bring them casseroles, or to walk their golden retriever Milo when Daniel was away on long flights. To anyone looking from the outside, they were the perfect young couple, he in uniform, she in floral dresses, hand in hand at Sunday brunch. Ibruhi, but perfection, I've learned, has a fragile skin. One small truth can make it split open. Ibr. It began with small things, though I didn't realize their meaning at the time. Lily's eyes had changed, softer when Daniel wasn't around, sharper when he was. She'd started declining family dinners, saying she was tired or working late or helping a friend in crisis. Daniel, always trusting, never questioned her. But I saw it, the way she grew restless, how her smile no longer reached her eyes. One evening, while Daniel was overseas, I dropped off a bowl of chicken soup. She opened the door in a silk robe, hair damp, eyes red. She said she'd been crying over a sad movie, but there was a scent in the air that didn't belong to her. Cologne, deep and musky, definitely not Daniel's. Abra, still. I told myself not to meddle. I'd promised myself I'd never be that kind of mother-in-law, the one who spies, who accuses, who tears families apart with half-truths. Abra, so I stayed silent. Abra, until that call. The phone rang again 5 minutes later. Abri. Mom, listen, I just checked the manifest. She's flying to Chicago, seat 12A. She used her maiden name, but I'd know her anywhere. Abra, my heart pounded. Did you talk to her? No, I can't. I'm crew, Mom. We're not supposed to interact with passengers unless necessary, but... Abra. He stopped, exhaling shakily. She wasn't alone. There was a man with her. Abra's words hit me like cold waters. To me like cold water. For a moment, all I could hear was the clock ticking in my kitchen. I stared at the photo on my refar. Igarator, Lily and Daniel, smiling in front of their first home. Her hand on his chest, his pilot wings glinting in the sun. Mom, what do I do? Aber, I didn't have an answer. Aber, I'd spent years teaching my children to be kind, to trust, to forgive, but in that moment, every motherly instinct screamed one thing: find out the truth. Bruh. So I told him to stay calm, to do his job, and to call me when he landed. Abri. Then I set my coffee cup down, grabbed my coat, and stared out at the gray sky. Something inside me knew this was just the beginning. Brr. Those next few hours were a blur. I tried to distract myself, folding laundry, watering plants, even baking banana bread. But my mind kept drifting back to that plane soaring above the clouds. Abru, was she laughing? Abrica holding someone's hand? Or sitting there, calm as ever, rehearsing another lie to tell Daniel when she got home? I sat on my porch as rain began to fall again. Milo trotted up to me. Lily had left him with me for the weekend, she said. That weekend, Lily came over. She carried a basket of muffins, smiling like nothing was wrong. Just wanted to say thank you for watching Milo, she said. You're a lifesaver. Sight. Her tone was light, but her eyes darted around, never landing on mine for long. She looked nervous, or guilty. Abricker, I invited her in. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen. She took a seat at the table, and I studied her carefully. Her hair was perfectly curled, but her hands trembled slightly when she reached for her cup. So how've you been? I asked casually. Feeling better? Oh, yes, much better. The rest did me good. She smiled, but her voice cracked. Daniel said his flight rezzed. Eber. And then she made her mistake. Daniel said his flight was delayed to Denver, right? Brr. I tilted my head. Chicago, dear. Chicago. Her eyes flickered, and I caught it. That one flash of realization that she'd slipped. I smiled politely. I smiled politely. You must have forgotten. He mentioned Chicago when he called me. Sabri, she forced a laugh. Oh, right, Chicago. My mind's all over the place lately. Brr. I nodded, sipping my coffee, but inside my heart was pounding. Because I knew what that meant. She hadn't just been lying to Daniel, she'd been keeping track of him, avoiding him, coordinating her stories around his flights. Eber, and that meant this wasn't random, this was deliberate. I waited until she left, then picked up my phone and called my friend Claire. She's an old colleague of mine from my teaching days, but more importantly, she works part-time for a travel agency. Claire, I need a favor, I said quietly. Can you check something for me? Brr. I gave her Lily's full name, and her maiden name, the one she'd used to book the flight. An hour later, Claire called back. Kibruker. Maggie, she's got another booking, same name, same ID number, round trip, Seattle to Chicago, leaving next Friday. I felt it Friday. Bro, I felt a chill crawl up my neck. Same city, same flight route Daniel usually took. Who's she traveling with? I asked. Cousin, second passenger. Second passenger. Listed as Mr. Thomas Avery. Chibur. That name hit me like a punch. Aber. Thomas Avery, he wasn't a stranger. Anger. Ebru. He was Tom's former co-pilot, Daniel's godfather, and my late husband's oldest friend. It's strange, isn't it? How betrayal doesn't always come like thunder. Sometimes it creeps in quietly, in the spaces between conversations, in the names you thought you could trust. I remembered Thomas at Tom's funeral. The way he'd held my hand, offered to look after the family. He'd been like an uncle to Daniel growing up, even helping him land his first pilot job. And now he was sneaking around with my daughter-in-law. Kibritharum felt suddenly too small. Brr, the air too heavy. I sank into a chair, pressing my palm against my forehead. It wasn't just betrayal. It was legacy. My husband's memory being dragged into something sordid and cruel. Brr. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Mom, can we talk? Hebrew. His voice was hoarse, tired. I told him to come over. When he arrived, I saw the exhaustion written all over his face. His uniform was still on, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept since that first call. Sheber. He sat down, staring at the table. I don't know what's real anymore, he said softly. She swears she loves me, but I can't get that image out of my head. Abru, I reached across and took his hand. Then let's find out the truth together, son. No more guessing, no more lies. You really think she's slowly, eyes glistening. You really think she's hiding something? I don't think, Daniel, I said quietly. I know. That night, after he left, I sat in the dim kitchen again, same chair, same ticking clock. Only this time I wasn't scared. Abraham, I was ready. Abraham, next Friday, Lily would board that flight again, and this time, the days need me coming. The days leading up to that Friday crawled by like a slow, heavy fog. I busied myself with chores I barely remembered doing, polishing the kitchen counter until it gleamed, reorganizing spice jars, even cleaning out the attic. Anything to quiet the storm in my head. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart skipped. Daniel and I had decided to keep things calm. He would act as if nothing was wrong, and I'd quietly gather what we needed, proof. Because until then, it was just his word against hers. Ibrahim and love, I've learned, can make people doubt their own eyes. Thursday night, I couldn't sleep. Rain tapped gently against the roof, while the streetlight outside cast long, soft shadows across my bedroom wall. I kept thinking about Tom, my husband. He'd been a pilot too. A good man. Loyal, steady, the kind of man who left love notes tucked in my lunch bag even after 20 years of marriage. Thomas Avery had been his best friend, his co-pilot, his confidant. I remembered their laughter echoing in our living room after long flights, their voices blending over beers and old memories. If Tom were alive, he would never have believed that Thomas could do something like this. Neither could I. But grief and loneliness make fools of people. I knew that better than anyone. Still, nothing excused what they were doing to Daniel. By midnight, I sat up in bed, staring at the ceiling, and whispered, Sheber, Bursch. Tom, I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, but I'll make it right. Friday morning I dressed simply, jeans, a gray sweater, my old leather bag. I left early, long before sunrise, and drove to SeaTac Airport. I knew which flight Lily was taking, the same route Daniel had worked last week, Flight 724 to Chicago. I'd booked my own ticket under my maiden name, just like she had. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. Inside the terminal, the air smelled of coffee and jet fuel. The rhythmic sound of rolling luggage echoed through the bright, sterile space. I found a seat near gate B12, heart thudding beneath my coat. At 8:30 a.m. I saw her. She walked through the concourse like she owned the world. Beige trench coat, hair pinned neatly, a faint smile on her lips, and beside her was Thomas Avery. Fabric older now, silver hair combed back, suit pressed, hand resting casually on her lower back. It wasn't an illusion. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was betrayal, walking calmly toward security. I froze, had to sense my presence, to look up and see me. But she didn't. She handed her boarding pass to the attendant, laughing softly at something Thomas said. Her laugh, the same one that once echoed through my kitchen when she helped me bake pies, felt sharp, mocking now. I followed at a distance. My hands were steady, though my chest ached with each breath. They sat together in the waiting area, leaning close, sharing something on her phone. I caught the faint glint of her wedding ring. She hadn't even taken it off. I waited until boarding began, then quietly stepped forward and snapped a photo with my phone. The sound was barely audible, but it felt like thunder to me. There it was, evidence. Lily and Thomas seated side by side, smiling, oblivious to the world around them. When my flight was called, I boarded too. I didn't plan to confront them midair, I just needed to know where this trail ended. As fate would have it, the plane wasn't full. They were seated a few rows ahead, near the window. I took a seat diagonally behind them, half hidden by a tall man reading a newspaper. Ibru from there, I could see it all. The way Thomas placed his hand gently on hers. Ibru, the way she leaned into him as he whispered something near her ear. The way she laughed, freely, comfortably, like a woman deeply in love. Ibru and I thought of Daniel. Of how he'd once looked at her the same way. Ibru, that's when I realized this wasn't new. Ibru, it wasn't a fling or a mistake. This had been happening for months, maybe longer. Ibru, when we landed, I followed them through the terminal. They didn't rush, they moved like people who had nothing to hide. Ibru. Outside, a sleek black car waited for them. I watched as the driver took their luggage. Ibru Thomas held the door open for her. She smiled up at him, the same tender smile she'd given Daniel on their wedding day. Abri. I took another photo, my hand tremble. Slightly. As the car pulled away, I whispered under my breath, "You broke my son's heart," before he even knew it was broken. I returned to Seattle that evening, drained but resolute. Daniel came over as soon as he landed from his shift. Ibru stood in my kitchen, still in uniform, shoulders slumped. "Mom, I can't do this guessing anymore," he said quietly. "Ibru, you don't have to," I replied, sliding my phone across the table. He picked it up, and for a moment, time stopped. His eyes widened as he stared at the photos. The color drained from his face. That's her." Ibru, his voice cracked. At her. His voice cracked. "Wande. And him. Brame. Ibru." He sank into a chair, braver, covering his face with his hands. His breathing grew uneven, shaky. I moved closer, resting my hand on his shoulder. "Daniel," I whispered, "you didn't deserve this." Bree shook his head. He shook his head, tears welling up. "He was like family, Mom. I looked up to him. How could they? He couldn't finish. His voice broke completely. I stayed quiet, letting him grieve. Sometimes words only make pain heavier. Brr. After a long silence, he looked up, eyes red. "What do we do now?" I took a deep breath. "You confront her, but you do it on your terms, with proof and with dignity. She's already lost her honor. Don't let her take yours too." Brr, he nodded slowly. "I'll call her tomorrow." As he left that night, I watched him walk to his car, his posture heavy, shoulders rounded, a man carrying the weight of betrayal. And I thought, as the taillights disappeared down the street, Ibru, sometimes the hardest part of love isn't losing it. It's learning who never truly gave it back. That night, I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Instead, I sat by the window with Milo curled at my feet, staring at the faint stars through the thinning clouds. Brr. It was strange. Even through the pain, I felt a calmness forming. Not peace yet, but purpose. Ibru, because tomorrow would bring the reckoning, and Lily would finally have to face the truth. Ibru, Daniel called her the next morning. I sat across the kitchen table, hands clasped, while he put her on speakerphone. Ibru. His voice was calm, too calm. "Lily," he said softly, "can we talk for a moment?" There was a pause, then her voice came through, light and airy as ever. "Of course, honey, what's wrong? You sound off." Rappery, he looked at me. "What?" He looked at me once, a fleeting glance, then spoke. I want you to be honest with me. Were you in Chicago this Friday?" A sharp inhale on her end. What? No, why would you even ask that?" "Albasa." "Ibro?" He exhaled, his fingers tightening around his phone. "Ibroth, because I saw photos, Lily, of you Of you and Thomas, even Milo. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ibruf, even Milo, lying by my feet, lifted his head as if sensing the tension. Who took those? She finally stammered. Seabury's Daniel's voice trembled. Does it matter? Is it true? And then her voice changed, softening, almost pleading. Daniel, please, it's not what you think. Ishproof. I saw his jaw tighten. And tell me what it is. Tell me why my wife is flying to Chicago with my father's best friend, using her maiden name. She didn't answer. When she finally spoke again, her tone was low, fragile. I didn't mean for you to find out this way. That was it, the admission. Seabrur, no more denials, no more pretending. Daniel closed his eyes, a tear sliding down his cheek. 3 years, Lily. 3 years, Lily, he whispered. 3 years I believed every word you said. And this whole time, it was a lie? Brr. Wasn't all a lie, she cried. I loved you, Daniel, I still do. But Thomas, he understood me. After your dad died, he was there. He listened. Hebrew father, Lily. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. Hebrew shand. He was my godfather, Lily, my mentor. You were supposed to be my wife. Hebrew, I wanted to speak. To speak. Scream even. This was his moment, his heartbreak, his truth. I didn't plan for it, she whispered. It just happened. After that, calls hung in the air like smoke, impossible to hold, impossible to ignore. After that call, Daniel didn't go home. He stayed with me for a few days, sleeping in his old room. The one still covered in faded posters of airplanes and high school medals. I'd hear him pacing at night, the floorboards creaking softly as he moved back and forth. Sometimes he'd step outside, standing silently under the porch light, staring at nothing. One night, around 2 a.m., I found him sitting on the steps, a cup of cold coffee in his hands. Mom, he said quietly, do you think people are just wired to betray? Me Brewery's voice was raw, almost childlike. Ibrahima, I sat beside him. The air was cool, the scent of wet earth lingering after a light rain. No, son, I said softly. I think people make choices, sometimes out of weakness, sometimes out of fear. But betrayal, that's a choice you make every time you hide the truth. Abru, he looked down at his hands, nodding slowly. I thought love was enough. Love is enough. I reached over and placed my hand on his. Love is enough, I whispered, but only when both hearts are honest. 2 days later, are honest. 2 days later, Lily showed up. I wasn't surprised. She always preferred to control the narrative. Abrahe. She stood on my doorstep, face pale, eyes rimmed with red. She looked nothing like the polished woman I'd seen at the airport. Chibri. Can I come in? She asked softly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. He's in the kitchen. Daniel was seated at the table, arms crossed, expression unreadable. She walked in slowly, clutching her bag. Daniel, please, can we talk? Babur. He didn't move. Talk. She sat across from him, tears welling up. Abrahi. I know you hate me, you have every right to, but Thomas and I... Hebrew. He raised a hand. Stop saying his name. Her lips trembled. I just want you to understand. I was lonely. You were gone all the time, flying, and I felt invisible. Hebrew, his voice was quiet, but sharp. So you turned to him, my father's best friend? Brishy flinched. It started as friendship, I swear, but then he made me feel seen again. Abra, I felt something break inside me hearing that, the way she twisted her betrayal into it. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low, steady. Do you even know what you've done? You destroyed 2 families, Lily. My father trusted him. I trusted you. Ye brood. Tears streamed down her face. I know, and I hate myself for it. Bree, not enough, he said simply. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Please, Daniel, I'll end it. I'll do whatever it takes. I just don't want to lose you. Ambery, he stared at her for a long time, long enough that I wondered what he did. She bretrie. Then he stood up. You already did. Ibra, she broke down completely then, sobbing, shaking, clutching her chest as he walked past her and out the door. I didn't move. I just watched her crumble. When she finally looked at me, her mascara streaked down her cheeks. She whispered, Burke, I never meant to hurt him, Mom. Bree looked, and for a fleeting moment I saw the young woman Daniel had fallen in love with, bright, hopeful, full of dreams. But that girl was gone now, replaced by someone who'd traded truth for comfort. Lily, I said quietly, you didn't just hurt him, you changed him, and some changes never heal. Eyes full of regret. Then she left, shoulders slumped, steps heavy, and I knew she wouldn't be back. Bricky words spread faster than I expected. In a community as small as ours, secrets are fragile things. Bree, Thomas's wife Ellen, called me a few days later. Her voice was shaking. Maggie, is it true? About Tom and your daughter-in-law, Ebru? I didn't want to confirm it, but lying felt cruel. Yes, Ellen. Yes, Ellen, I said softly. It's true. Abru, she began to cry, and I listened, helpless, as another woman's heart broke over the same betrayal that had shattered my son. Thomas resigned from the airline soon after. I heard he moved to Arizona alone. Lily filed for divorce quietly, leaving town without saying goodbye. Bricky Daniel signed the papers a month later. He didn't cry when he handed them to me. He just said, Bahalo, it's done. But I saw it in his eyes, the hollow space where love used to live. Life slowly settled into something resembling normal. Again. Daniel took a leave of absence, spent weeks traveling the coast with Milo, finding quiet places where no one knew his story. And me, I went back to my garden, back to my herbs and tea and quiet evenings by the window. Sometimes, in the stillness of twilight, I'd hear a plane overhead and look up, wondering if Daniel was up there, guiding others through the clouds while finding his own way through the storm. And I'd whisper to myself, "You did the right thing, Maggie." The truth was painful, but silence would have been worse. It's strange how betrayal lingers, not loud, not violent, but quiet, like a whisper in the corners of your home. Everywhere you go, it's there. In the photos you can't bring yourself to take down. Ibri, in the scent of her shampoo that still clings to a pillowcase, in the sound of his name, even when no one dares to say it anymore. Ibra for months. That's how life felt for Daniel. He wasn't angry all the time. He wasn't even sad. Kibra, he was just empty. Abra Kraus, in our small town, news travels faster than forgiveness. One day I was at the grocery store when two women by the produce section fell silent as I walked by. They whispered, eyes following me. I didn't need to hear their words. I knew. Did you hear about the pilot's wife? Ran off with an older man, disgusting. Poor Maggie, she raised such a good son. Sympathy, they meant it as sympathy, but gossip never sounds kind, no matter how softly it's spoken. I stood there pretending to compare tomatoes, pretending I didn't feel their pity like knives against my back. Later that week, I saw Ellen, Thomas's wife, at church. Hebrew, her eyes were swollen, her hands trembling as she lit a candle. When our gazes met, we didn't say a word. We didn't need to. Two women, both blindsided by the same betrayal, both pretending to breathe normally while our worlds quietly collapsed. Then came the headline, Fee Burr. A small column buried deep in the local paper. Burr, former airline executive, resigns amid personal scandal. Small scandal. Birth. They didn't print names, but everyone knew. Burr. Everyone could read between the lines. Daniel found the paper on my porch one morning. Burr hadn't it for a long time. Egan folded it neatly and set it aside. They can print whatever they want, he said softly. The truth already ruined us. But the truth us didn't end it to ruin. Fine. Like gold tested by fire. He started going back to the gym, running in the early mornings before the sun rose. He talked less, but when he did, his words carried a calm strength I hadn't heard before. Sometimes healing isn't loud, it's just consistent. One afternoon, months later, Daniel came home with a visitor. It was Lily's younger sister, Claire. She stood at the doorway clutching a small box. She's soft. This was Lily's, she said, holding the box out to Daniel. Daniel? She wanted you to have it. He hesitated, but took it. Hesitated. Inside was his old wedding ring, and a note. Her handwriting was shaky, barely legible. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to forgive myself for what I did to you. You were my home, Daniel. I just didn't realize it until I'd already burned it down. He read it once, then closed the box. Didn't cry, didn't break. Just sat there quietly, eyes closed, as if saying goodbye to the last ghost still haunting him. A few weeks later, Daniel was cleared to return to flying. I drove him to the airport that morning, the same one where everything had begun. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in soft gold and lavender. He stood by the departure gate, uniform crisp, eyes calm. You sure you're ready? I asked, trying to sound steady. Bro. He smiled. The first real smile I'd seen in months. Bro. I think I am, Mom. First time. I'm not running from it anymore. I reached up, brushing a hand against his cheek like I did when he was a boy. You've always known how to find your way through the clouds. He hugged me tight. A long, steady embrace. Then he turned, walking down the corridor toward his plane. And as I head him disappear through the gate, I realized something. Sometimes, strength doesn't mean fighting to hold on. Sometimes, it means knowing when to let go. About a month later, I ran into Lily. It was completely by accident. A small coffee shop off Main Street. She looked thinner, older. Her eyes carried that hollow kind of sadness that never quite fades. When she saw me, she froze, then gave a nervous smile. Mrs. Parker, she said softly. I wasn't sure if I should say hello. I nodded. She hesitated. How is he? I studied her for a moment. Healing. Sealing. Oh. Tears filled her eyes. I'm glad. He deserves peace. I could have said many things then, about choices, betrayal, and the wreckage she left behind, Ibra, but I didn't, because some stories don't need more words. Just quiet closure. Show once more, and so I nodded once more and said, so do you, Lily. Just find yours somewhere far away. Bishapiri, she smiled faintly, then left, disappearing into the morning crowd like a shadow returning to its place. That evening, I stood in my garden again. Milo lay by my feet, snoring softly as the wind carried the faint hum of an airplane overhead. I looked up, shielding my eyes from the sun. Abro's sky was vast, endless, and somewhere up there I knew Daniel was flying. For a long moment I just stood there, letting the noise fade into the quiet. Ebru and I thought about how strange life is, how it takes us through storms we never saw coming, and somehow still teaches us to trust the sky again, because healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to live without the weight of the past pressing against your chest. So I whispered to the fading clouds, "Fly safe, my son. You found your way home." When I look back now, I realize something about the way life tests us. It doesn't always come with thunder or fire. Sometimes the test comes quietly, in a phone call that shouldn't exist. Ibrurki, in a truth that shakes the ground beneath your feet. Ibrua, in the face of someone you once trusted with your whole heart. For me, it began with 5 words. Ibrurshi, impossible. She's on my flight. Abri, and for months after that, I thought those words had destroyed everything. Ibr, but they hadn't. They had simply revealed what was already broken, the cracks we ignore in the name of love, the silences we mistake for peace. Abr are the people we believe will never lie to us, until they do. I used to think betrayal was the worst pain a heart could know. Abri, but I've learned something gentler and deeper. It isn't betrayal that destroys us. Abru, it's the bitterness we hold on to after. Bri, because bitterness doesn't punish the one who hurt us, it punishes us. It keeps us frozen in the moment we were wronged, she, while life moves quietly on, waiting for us to forgive. Not for them, Ibri, but for ourselves. Bri. Daniel learned that lesson faster than I did. He forgave her, not because she deserved it, Ibrahim, but because he refused to let her be the reason he stopped flying, and that, I think, is the real victory. To be broken, and still choose to soar. Now, when I hear a plane pass over my house, Ibrahim, I don't think of that terrible night anymore. I think of my son, somewhere high above the clouds, Ibrahim steady on the controls, Ibrahim heart lighter than it's been in years. And I smile, because I know that no matter how hard life tries to ground us, there will always come a day when we rise again, not untouched, but unbroken. Ibri. So, if you're listening to this, Ibrahim, and you've ever been betrayed, Ibrahim, if you've ever stood in the ashes of something you can last forever, Ibrahim, remember this, Ibrahim, you can rebuild. Ibrahim, you can start again. And, if we're lucky, Ibrahim, back home again.